There's a growing conversation happening online right now, and it's centered around one of Hollywood's most respected actors, Leonardo DiCaprio. Known for his incredible performances, award-winning career, and global influence, DiCaprio has built a reputation as one of the finest actors of his generation. But recently, the spotlight has shifted away from his films and onto his personal life, specifically his dating history. What was once seen as just another celebrity lifestyle is now being viewed very differently. Social media platforms, news outlets, and fans are all asking the same question. Why does Leonardo DiCaprio seem to follow the same dating pattern over and over again? And more importantly, is this pattern starting to affect how people see him? This isn't just random gossip anymore. It has become a trending topic with millions of searches every month, generating debates, memes, and even criticism from people who once admired him purely for his work. The conversation is no longer just about who he's dating, it's about what it represents. Over the years, fans began noticing something unusual. Leonardo DiCaprio has been linked to several relationships, many of which seem to follow a similar timeline and pattern. At first, it didn't attract much attention. After all, celebrities often date within certain social circles. But as time passed, people started connecting the dots. Discussions began appearing online, pointing out similarities between his relationships, particularly the age range of the people he was dating and how those relationships seemed to end. What started as light-hearted observations quickly turned into viral conversations. Memes spread across platforms, jokes became trends, and suddenly, something that once went unnoticed became one of the most talked about topics in celebrity culture. The reason this gained so much traction is simple: patterns create curiosity. And when that pattern involves a global celebrity, it becomes even more intriguing. People began questioning whether this was just coincidence or something more intentional. And with each new rumored relationship, the conversation only grew louder. What started as curiosity has now evolved into full-blown controversy. The discussion is no longer just about patterns. It's about perception. How does this affect DiCaprio's public image? And is it fair for his personal life to be analyzed this way? Some people argue that his private relationships should remain private. They believe that as long as everything is legal and consensual, there's no reason for public criticism. From this perspective, the entire situation is simply an example of how celebrity lives are often over-scrutinized. On the other hand, critics argue that public figures carry a certain level of responsibility when it comes to influence. They believe that repeated patterns, especially those that stand out so clearly, can shape how audiences perceive not just the individual, but also broader cultural norms. This is where the conversation becomes more complex. And that complexity is exactly what's driving engagement. People aren't just watching, they're debating. They're sharing opinions, analyzing behavior, and forming their own conclusions. And in today's digital world, that level of engagement can quickly turn any topic into a global trend. Reputation in Hollywood is everything. And while Leonardo DiCaprio is still widely respected for his talent, this ongoing discussion is starting to shape how some people view him beyond his work. For many fans, the focus has shifted. Instead of just talking about his latest film or performance, conversations now often include his personal life. This doesn't necessarily erase his achievements, but it does add another layer to his public image. What's interesting is how quickly perception can change. In the past, this aspect of his life might have gone largely unnoticed or unchallenged. But today, with social media amplifying every detail, even long-standing patterns can suddenly become major talking points. This also highlights a broader trend in celebrity culture. Audiences today are more observant and more vocal. They don't just consume content, they analyze it. And when something stands out, they discuss it on a massive scale. As the conversation continues, the biggest question is, what happens next? Will this ongoing discussion fade over time, or will it continue to influence how Leonardo DiCaprio is perceived by the public? There's no clear answer yet. Reputation is shaped over time, and while controversies can create temporary shifts, long-term impact depends on how situations evolve. What's certain is that this topic has already made a significant impact in terms of visibility and engagement. It also reflects a deeper change in how audiences interact with celebrities. People are no longer just interested in talent, they're interested in behavior, patterns, and the stories behind the spotlight. And in a world where every detail can go viral, even personal choices can become part of a much larger narrative. But there's an additional dimension to this conversation that's starting to gain attention, and it goes beyond just one individual. It's about the evolving standards of accountability in the age of hypervisibility. In the past, celebrities existed at a distance. Their personal lives were filtered through interviews, magazines, and carefully managed public appearances. There was a level of separation between who they were and how the public perceived them. But today, that distance has almost completely disappeared. With social media, digital archives, and constant online discussion, patterns don't stay hidden. They get documented, revisited, and analyzed in real time. And once something becomes noticeable, it doesn't fade, it compounds. That's exactly what's happening here. What might have once been seen as a personal preference is now being interpreted through a broader cultural lens. People aren't just asking what is happening, they're asking, what does this mean? And that shift from observation to interpretation is what turns a topic into a long-term conversation. Another important factor is generational change. Younger audiences, particularly those active on platforms like TikTok and X, tend to engage with celebrity culture very differently. They're more likely to question patterns, challenge norms, and openly critique behaviors that previous generations may have ignored or accepted. This doesn't necessarily mean they're right or wrong, it just means the lens has changed. And when that lens changes, so does the narrative. This is why the discussion around Leonardo DiCaprio feels bigger than it might have in the past. It's not just about his choices, it's about how those choices are being reinterpreted in a new cultural context. A context where consistency in behavior invites scrutiny, and where public figures are often expected to align with evolving social expectations. At the same time, there's also a counter-movement forming. In the end, this isn't just about one actor. It's about how modern celebrity culture works, how quickly stories spread, how narratives are formed, and how public perception can shift in ways that were never possible before. And as long as that dynamic exists, conversations like this will continue to shape the way we see even the biggest stars in the world.